Hello and welcome back to the Scale Modelling Cafe. My name is Jamie and welcome to another chat video. Fireside chat, I'm going to call this. That's what we used to call back in the military when a senior officer used to come and chat to the boys, never informally, but a little bit more relaxed so they could get sort of the nature of things, really. So I just thought I'd call this the Fireside Chat. And the subject of this, as you would have seen from the title video, is Airfix. Maybe a controversial subject. Let's find out. I'm sure there'll be a fair amount of discussion in the comments below, because it seems that Airfix bring out the inner sort of keyboard warrior in people, frankly. Sometimes justified, sometimes not. And I'm going to explore those. But it's all going to be from my point of view and my opinion alone. That's all. There is going to be a little bit of marketing blah in there. I'm not a professional market person. I don't know obviously too much about the modelling market, but this is stuff that I've gleaned from people who know far more than me. So we may as well start off with that then, really. And the marketing side of things. Now, Airfix are, have a place in the UK that they are a household name. Most people in the UK will have built an Airfix kit. Quite a few have built an awful lot of Airfix kits. And they are kind of up there with, brands like Hoover and, that kind of thing. They're a household brand. So, from what I understand, is most of their kits are bought by casual modelers. And when I say casual modelers, I mean not people like myself with a permanent setup who throw a load of aftermarket at their models. They enjoy modelling. There's no sort of threshold of how many kits a year they build or anything like that. But they probably do it on some sort of tray on the kitchen or dining room table. They probably brush paint. They may spray. They may have a sort of compressor or something like that, but they don't take it as seriously as I do. Now, I'm certainly not criticising those people or anything like that. In fact, what I'm going to do is if I remember, I'll stick a picture up now of when we were living in Ilchester near Yeovilton, and I used to do my modelling on the kitchen table. I wouldn't class myself as a casual modeller back then, because I was taking the hobby extremely seriously. I was throwing all the aftermarket at it and all that kind of stuff, doing stuff for magazines and blah. So what I mean by that is, people who have a bit of nostalgia for the youth, people who throw together a kit on a rainy afternoon, maybe something to do, whilst waiting for final score to come on the telly, that kind of modeller. And it's, from what I'm led to believe, that is the core market for Airfix. People like myself, and maybe yourselves out there, who sort of take the hobby to another level, shall we say, make up a small proportion of the total buying market. But those people tend to be the ones smashing the keyboard every time they get a bit knocked. They're also the sort of people who, are convinced that a Blackburn in 1/24 scale will be an absolute money spinner, etc. And I do include myself in that part of the Venn diagram. Bit self denigration there. I don't believe a Blackburn in 1/24 scale will make a gazillion, but you kind of get the point I'm trying to get across. So the vocal people who moan about Airfix are not the core market and make up a tiny proportion of the people who actually buy their kits. So where do I fit in with all this, and what's my opinion on all that? And of Airfix. So clearly, being a British modeller, Airfix is close to my heart. It's what I grew up on. I wish Airfix could just go to that next level in quality. When I open an Airfix box, or even, before I open that Airfix box, I'm hoping and praying to the modelling gods that this time, this is the one, this is the kit that is going to bring them up to Special Hobby, Armour Hobby, Edward, Meng, Kitty Hawk, Kinetic, blah, the list goes on. They just undershoot the competition in quality every single time. Now, I think there's a few reasons for that. And I think the main one comes down to cost. They outsource their tooling and moulding to India, which is fine. Many companies outsource their tooling and production, but I think mainly to China. And by doing it to a cost in India, it means the quality of the kit suffers. We all know about the panel lines and the surface detail. They are too big. When you look at some of the kits that Armour Hobby are doing, a very small company from Poland, and the quality of the plastic and the moulding that they are producing, I wish Airfix could elevate themselves to that level, but it will come at a cost. And I think that conflict is why we are where we are with Airfix, and it's why the quality of their mouldings are thus. For example, the 72nd BF 110. Edwards is absolutely beautiful. Airfix's isn't. Now, okay, it's an older kit, but the 172nd, both their BF 110s came out in roughly the same era. And the Edward kit was about 2.5 times the price. Now, great, I'm prepared to pay that for the Edward kit. The 90, 95, whatever the percentage is of those casual modelers, maybe are not. And if they want a BF 110 in their collection, they'll buy Airfix and they'll put it together and they'll be very, very pleased with it. I've not built the kit because I don't want to. Because why would I? I'd rather pay much more for an Edward kit. Again, that's just me. But Airfix are in the business of making money. And if they produced a kit to the same price as Edward, I'm not sure that they'd get the return on their investment. And I want Airfix to survive. I want Airfix to grow. And if it takes kits like that in order to make the company sustainable, then bring it on. It doesn't stop me getting disappointed every time I open that new box though. So, for example, this thing here, the Buccaneer. Now, I built this. I think this was the first kit I built when I came. The first kit I built in Saudi, where I am now. And I was really excited for it. I love the Buccaneer. And again, when I opened the box, there was that kind of shoulders dropped moment because the panel lines are too big and too soft. The detail, certainly in the cockpit, is very basic and clunky. The canopy is thick. It's a typical Airfix product. Now, I'm very, very pleased with the result and how it turned out. but I had to do an awful lot of work to get it up to that point. So I needed to replace the seats. There's resin seats in it. There's a load of photo etch in the cockpit and a little bit of scratch building. I took a trick from Roy Sutherland of Barracuda Studios, who said, actually, the panel lines, the way they're moulded, they're quite wide and soft with rounded edges, but they're kind of chamfered. So if you sand down the top, so if I just move that down, if you sand down the top, you can see, in fact, it's probably better if I do it like that, isn't it? Imagine my hands at the panel line. You can see it's much narrower and much finer. And it worked a treat. It really did. I did run a scribing tool around the panel lines just to sharpen it up at the bottom, just so it would take a wash nicer. But it really, really helped the finesse of those panel lines. The construction, now it looks like a simple aeroplane actually, but when you break it down, the Airfix have designed the kit in a really sensible way, in that you've got the kind of centre section, the intakes and exhausts go on, and then the nose goes on the front in two classic clamshell halves, and then the tail in two classic clamshell halves go onto the back. Because of the moulding in the plastic, rather than having sort of a joint like this going together, because it's softly moulded, the kind of edges curve in. So when you put the plastic together, you end up with a bit of a gnarly gap, bigger than a panel line. So I ended up filling all that, sanding it all down, and doing a rescribing job. All the separate panels underneath, where the tail hook go, where the bomb bay goes, didn't really fit that great. It all needed fettling, it all needed filler, and it's just the kind of, all those things together mean that if you want a really nice refined looking model at the end of the process, you need to be prepared to put an awful lot of work in. If you want to slap it together and throw some paint on it, then you can do that as well. I just wonder, and I must ask them, I do know one or two of the guys at Airfix, and I will ask them this question one day, when I see them next, whenever that may be, is, do they design the kit knowing the limitations of cost and moulding, and therefore, do they get a little bit frustrated if they dumb it down a little bit, knowing those limitations? I'd love to know the answer to that. I hope so, frankly, because it means that if they do turn around and invest more in the tooling, then, and the plastic, then they can bring out the inner Uber designer in there, and we'll get a highly detailed, lovely, refined kit. I'll ask them one day. I will ask that question. If I think back to the Airfix kits that I built, sort of going back, and certainly the recent kits, the other one that jumps out to me is the venerable, dear old 48 scale Chipmunk. Now that model looked great on the sprues. It's, yeah, the plastic is that sort of lighty bluey grey colour, but actually it looked quite nice on the sprues. The raised rivets on the wing are really nicely refined. It's got good fabric texture. The canopy was thin and clear. I like the way they moulded the canopy. All right, it's a bit of a pain in the arse to glue, but they're really quite innovative in that they give you a jig, and you put the clear parts in the jig, and you can glue them together, and it sets all nicely, and you know, fantastic. And they really are innovative these days in a lot of areas. Where the kit falls down is in a few areas, and this is the problem with Airfix, in my opinion, is, you know, they're just coming up to the line and then they trip over. So the way the wing goes together, the pin and the hole for the two halves of the wings, they're slightly misaligned. So if you do align up the pins, it gives a sort of anhedral droop to the wings. And if you go online, you'll see quite a few models that look like that, including some of the ones on the Airfix website. If you do what I did, and that is chop the pin off and glue the wing together nice and flat, old school modelling technique, what that does is it misaligns the wingtips. So you then have to re-profile the wingtips. Again, fit is good, a little bit of fettling, but then there's work required to get it up to the right standard. It's frustrating. I think the kit is designed to have the cowlings open to show off the engine. That's how it was designed. That means you get, if you're going to do that, you obviously put the cowling flaps open. I don't like doing that on my models. It's why I don't do wing folds and things like that. The Buccaneer was all completely spread. The air brake was closed. The wings were down, because I just think it spoils the lines of the airframe. It's a really nice little engine. It's basic, but then the engine is basic. It's nicely detailed firewall, but the cowlings are just way too thick and have ejector pin marks on the inside. Yes, you can go out and buy the Edward photo etch set, which has the cowlings in there, and it looks great if you use those, but you know, me being me, I would have to do that. But I decided to glue the cowlings shut and do everything buttoned up. The exhaust interfered and got in the way. Nothing really fitted. You know, it didn't just click into place. It all required a lot of fettling, and in the end, it was filling, sanding, rescribing. A pain in the bum. But I am very pleased with the final result. But it took a lot more effort than I think it should have taken to get there. Frustrating. And that seems every single time I get an Airfix kit, that's exactly what happens. And yeah, it's that kind of sigh, breathe out, shoulders drop. Ugh, when you start wading through the treacle as you're putting the thing together. But I think there is light at the end of the tunnel, or light over the horizon. The 1/48 scale Buccaneer, which I've not seen in the flesh. I've seen it built up, and I've seen it sprue shots and all that kind of stuff on the screen. It looks way better. It really does. The detail in the cockpit looks good. There are limitations to all plastic moulding. You can go to town on detailing the cockpit if you wish, with wire, scrap, photo etch, the inevitable photo etch, and probably the inevitable resin cockpit tub. But it looks really quite good from what I've seen. Certainly if you're going to have the canopy shut. And I think the Buccaneer looks quite good with the canopy shut, to be honest. It's that lines thing I was talking about. Seats look a bit clunky, if I'm honest, and they look a bit big compared to some of the resin aftermarket stuff. That doesn't mean to say that the resin aftermarket stuff is correct. I trust Airfix in their research on that. But the airframe looks really quite good, and I am going to get one, and I am going to build one. Now, I really ought to do the Navy version, me being, Fleet Air Arm retired and all that. But I've done that, and I did this in A6 Intruder colours as a what if, and it looked really cool actually. It suited the aeroplane really, really well. And I'd love to do it in 48 scale, but I don't want to have two in my collection. So I'm going to hang on, wait for the RAF version, and probably build it for a friend of mine who I know collects these kind of things. But I'll get the enjoyment of building it. The kind of elephant in the room on this is the price. I think the RRP, what is it, 72 or 74 pounds, which is a lot of money for an Airfix kit. But as I said, if we think right back to the BF110 discussion a few minutes ago, that is something I'm prepared to do. I am prepared to pay more for a better quality product. And by all accounts, it's been selling out absolutely everywhere. Certainly in the UK, don't know about overseas, but certainly in the UK, they're actually really quite hard to get hold of now. So, yay for Airfix. I think that's fantastic. It really is. Maybe that completely shoots down my theory of the casual modeler type analogy or thesis, theory. Hypothesis is a better word scientifically. My marketing hypothesis. Maybe that shoots all that down and I'm completely wrong. Who knows? There we go. Right, the other thing about Airfix is 1/24 scale. A lot of people have a lot of affection for the 1/24 scale kits. I don't. I think they're horrible because they're really, really old. They were fantastic in their day. And I remember as a little boy being extremely excited getting the 1/24 scale Spitfire for Christmas one year. And I had the FW190 and I couldn't put it together. It was beyond me. I was a small boy. Managed the Spitfire though, and I think it came with the motorised engine. So I have nostalgia for it back then, and a lot of nostalgia for it, but there's no way in the world I would ever build a 1/24 scale Airfix kit unless it was the Typhoon or the Hellcat, the modern ones. And they are brilliant kits. They really are. I've not built one, to be honest, but I've seen some of them obviously built up at Telford and online, and they look absolutely incredible. I'm still holding out for my 1/24 scale Tucano. Clearly that's never going to happen. But that's where they really excel. And they will never do 30-second. I know, people smash the keyboard. Oh, they'd make a fortune if they did the Typhoon in 30-second. But they never ever will. It's just not their thing. So there's no point even going there. The 1/24 scale Spitfire Mark 9 that's due to come out also looks like a stunning kit. I shan't be getting it. For me, 24th scale is just a little bit too big as a model, And I'm a guy who owns the Border Models 32nd scale Lancaster. I just think 24 scale, they just look too big as a single engine fighter on the table. It's just, for me, it's almost like the proportions are all wrong. I think 32nd scale is the perfect scale for a large single engine fighter. 24th, it's just too big a lump, I think. And again, it's just me, my own personal opinion on that. But many, many people love them and fantastic. So that's it, really. That's my thoughts on Airfix. I hope that didn't come across as too negative, because like I say, I buy Airfix kits. Two right here. This one will be coming to the channel at some stage. I buy Airfix kits. I wish I enjoyed building them more. They do take an awful lot of effort to put together. They take more effort to put together and get a result that I like, but I always like the result at the end of it. The future. Hopefully the Buccaneer is the first model in a series of kits that's going to up that level and bring them closer to some of the other manufacturers out there. They're clearly never going to get to the heights of Tamiya. Probably not Edward either. Probably, if we're honest, Armour Hobby and companies like that. But I think they should be aiming to take on that second tier of companies. And the 48 scale Buccaneer is a really good combat indicator. They do some fantastic subjects, especially British subjects, and being a British modeler, that's awesome. I mean, who'd have thought a 48 scale Walrus, which is a really nice kit, by the way, and it goes together well. That's one of their really, really good ones. and I've built that kit. So looking at some of the test shots for the Anson, for example, that thing looks incredible. I really hope they mould it in, you know, they invest and it's in the same part of the Venn diagram as the 48th Buccaneer. I really do, because that deserves it, frankly. One thing I've forgotten to talk about, and that is the 48 scale Lightning, the 48 scale C5, 46, 47, and the Spitfire, is it 22 and a 24? Those kits stand out of the range. They stand out because their surface detail was on a par of the best in the business at the time. So they have done it. The reason why they only did the Lightning, the C5 and the Spitfire is because it costs so much money. Now, I've recently built 2 of the Lightnings. In fact, as I film this, the second part of the Lightning build is going out tomorrow. Everybody waxes lyrical about those. I've been kind of tempered by my experience of putting it together. It's very reminiscent of early to mid 90s Hasegawa with the surface detail, and the plastic's very crisp. Bland detail, if I'm honest, in the cockpit, certainly in the cockpit. What frustrated me with that kit is the fit wasn't up to Hasegawa mid 90s standards. Maybe that's just because it's quite old. I don't know. But again, it took a lot more effort than I wanted to get the result that I was aiming for. But again, I'm very, very pleased with the results. I've done the CFAR 47 relatively recently as well. And again, just not as satisfied with the result. Mainly because of the wing fold. As I said, I like to do the things spread, not folded up. So I think it's worth mentioning those. They were, back in the day, in the mid-90s, they were up there with Hasegawa, etc., with the best in the business. I'm just really hoping that Airfix can shoot back up there. I really am. Right. I think that's enough waffle. My views on Airfix. It would be great to hear your thoughts and, you know, kick off a little bit of a discussion down there in the comments. That would be great. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put up a little montage of some of the Airfix kits that I've built over the years. Hope you enjoy that. There's some nice ones in there. Nice kits, that is. I say a couple of the Lightnings, the Seafire I mentioned is in there, Walrus, and some other kits, and the Chipmunk I'll throw in there. So thank you very much for watching. I'm going to do a few more of these on some of my favourite manufacturers because it's quite good fun, actually. So I keep saying so. Jamie, note to self, stop saying that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.